without making formal changes to the contract.
Again, I don't think that's a problem. The, the,
Yeah,
the
and that's another
statute,
way to deal with it is, maybe we don't change the language in the franchise and we just, do another side letter where the parties agree that this is the way we're interpreting the section.
Yeah,
yeah, we'd be happy to do that.
that would be fine with me as everybody else.
Yep.
Thank you, Ken.
Ken, do you want to make a presentation from your perspective on the terms of the franchise agreement?
Sure, I'll try to be brief and really I'm prepared to answer any questions that you might have. But, I know I've addressed the council by phone conference previously, and I don't know if we have new council members after the fall election.
We have
Do we have
one.
anybody who's brand new to this?
Yes.
There is one.
Okay, so, we started this process in by collaborating with Sterling and Fort Morgan. We saved a little bit of money and shared resources, but we started this process with all three cities with the intent to try to maintain the benefits that existed in the current franchise, address some new technology issues, and move forward from that point. And we did a study to determine that the technical condition of the franchise was actually in pretty good shape, which was one of the things we wanted to check out at the front end. And I can honestly not tell you that we were able to preserve all of the benefits of the original franchise. We are dealing with a different cable company today than we dealt with at the time of the last franchise. All cable companies do things a little bit differently. I mean no disrespect to Charter or the people that work for Charter. They're very nice people. I enjoy having them as colleagues, even though we disagree on a lot of issues. I will tell you, in my experience, Charter takes a much tougher stand and is less flexible with the communities that I've worked in, and from what I hear from my colleagues around the country who negotiate franchises on behalf of local governments, than a lot of other big cable companies. That's not to say that other cable companies are easy on all issues and Charter is difficult on all issues, but there were a number, there are a handful of issues in any franchise where we're limited by what the statute says a municipality can require. That doesn't mean that parties can't negotiate other terms and conditions that the statute doesn't give us the authority to impose, but they certainly can be voluntarily agreed to. And Charter takes the position on many of those terms that, we're just not going to do what the statute doesn't give you permission to force us to do. So for some of the issues, I think there was some disappointment on our part. When I say our, I mean all three cities and the staff who was involved in the negotiations. On a number of those issues, we were able to make enough compromises that staff felt comfortable recommending to you. This is a pretty good deal, maybe not as good on all points as we were hoping, but given the alternative of taking this to a more formal dispute process that could lead to a franchise denial, that's a very time-consuming and expensive process. And in my discussions with Monty and Bo, and I know in their subsequent discussions with the council, the direction was, let's try to get the best deal we can get. The city of Brush has better things to spend its money on than lawyers fighting cable companies, and that's a decision that I wholeheartedly agree with, by the way. We were able to preserve the cable channel for the city, which was very important. We were able to negotiate some financial support for equipment for the cable channel. We are not able to continue free cable service in all public buildings. We can't require that anymore under the statute, and Charter is not willing to continue to provide it. Although they say that they will continue it to the schools, which is nice. And we had requested that at a minimum, Charter make a commitment, a binding legal commitment to continue to provide free service to the city's emergency operations center, which are actually 2 locations in Brush. Given the weather issues that you all deal with on the plains, that would be a critically important thing to have, and it would be nice to have Charter basically donate that instead of charging for it. I thought we had an agreement that Charter was willing to make that legally binding commitment in a side letter, not in the franchise agreement. I really don't care what document it's in as long as it's legally binding. And then we ended up getting the side letter from Charter, which was not a legally binding commitment. It's basically a letter that says Charter intends to continue to provide that service, and it intends not to charge the city for that service, but that it also is doing it basically as a voluntary benefit for the city, and it reserves all of its rights under the statute, which means legally it can stop doing it if it wants to and say, if you want to keep the service, you're going to have to pay for it. I wasn't real happy about the way that ended up, but that's what we got, and we hope that Charter is good to its word when it says it has no intent to end that service during the term of the franchise. So I think we got the best deal that we can get under the circumstances, and I just want to be real frank with you that it's been a frustrating process, and we didn't get all the things that we had hoped to get in the form that we wanted to get them, but we're still at a point where I think Bo and Monty and I can recommend this to you for approval, and with that I'll shut up unless any of you have any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Any further discussion?
Comments from the public, Chair.
Any comments from the public? Anybody? State your name, please.
My name is Don Hare. I live at 430 Howell Avenue in Brush. I generally like to resolve issues with a company rather than coming to a public forum to address issues that I feel are being inappropriately addressed. And I've been a customer, my company's been a customer of cable TV in Brush since day one, since they opened across the street over here. So that's over 50 years ago. Up until about 6 months ago, we had a pretty good deal. The quality of the service was excellent. Beginning in, I believe it was in October, the quality of service in this western part of the community has fallen through the cracks. It is extremely frustrating to be watching television, a movie or a football game or whatever's on, and the video goes out, the audio goes out, you call the company and they say, well, we'll send a technician out. In 1 month I called on 4 different occasions. I've seen 4 different technicians, and they all tell me the same thing. The equipment in your house is excellent. It's our problem. I'm not home during the regular working hours from 8 to 5, so my calls are in the evening. I feel badly because the telephone dispatchers that answer the phone for Charter, Bresnan at night get whammed because the quality is so bad and you've interrupted your program that you're trying to watch. I've talked with a few of my neighbors, so it isn't just mine. The company representatives have come in, their technicians have come in and said, it's not your problem, it's ours, call us when it happens again. Well, you call them, you get the same runaround from the dispatchers that are in Pueblo or wherever they answer the phone from, and we'll see you tomorrow afternoon. We'll call you, and you've got to be there. I've got a job that I can't be there during working hours, and it's impossible. And I've asked them to call and schedule a time when they can meet me when they're on the way. The technicians have been great about doing that, and I've met them every time. But the quality is so bad. Then I ask for a rebate or something from the company because of the quality being so bad for 1 month. The next month, I'm blessed with a 10% increase on my monthly fee. Something's wrong with this picture. I think that's probably the reason so many people are going to other alternatives from cable TV. And so I just want to make sure that you're aware of that. If you've ever tried to watch a city council meeting on the cable channel that's available, forget it. Half the time it's blacked out. You can never hear the conversation going on. The quality is so bad that you just throw up your hand and say, forget it, I'm not going to even bother watching that anymore. That's part of the agreement that they have to provide. And so there are some concerns that need to be addressed by the cable TV company. Thank you.
Thank you. Any response or?
Well,
My first response, if I could, we need to talk to Bob and I before he leaves. Most certainly. As most companies, it's true there are service issues. I appreciate the fact that the techs have been very, very helpful. One of the things we are focusing on is how do we improve our customer service when people call in, when we set up appointments, when we try and get back to you. I would say that starting in October, just so the council knows, and actually December, we had some serious spikes related to our service issues. Mountain storm across the mountain states, snowstorm, very severe in December. It definitely impacted our service. We're aware of that. And we are taking steps to make sure that those service quality issues are addressed. In the scheme of things, top service, by and large, 99% of the time, the charter service works the way it's supposed to. And when it doesn't, we need our customers to call us. So I know it can be frustrating, but thank you for calling. With our all-digital, and Fort Morgan is an all-digital city, where we have upgraded the cable service to HD services. Fort Morgan was upgraded last year, but it's still relatively new across the mountain states. We're still working on communities where we're upgrading it. Minimum of 60 megabits of internet service. So we're working through those issues as they come along, but by and large, across our footprint, the service is very high quality. And you're right, we have competition. We compete against DirecTV, your Dish TV, any of your satellite providers that do not provide franchise fees back to the city. And in a town the size of Brush, 5,000 in some households, we don't have the bulk of this market. So we are competing for cable service again with customers, and we know customers have the right to vote with their feet. They always do if we don't provide service. So we do encourage anyone who has issues to call us. That's the 1-888-GET-CHARTER number, and we will do what we can to fix it for you. And one of my jobs is to make sure that all of you have access to the people you need. So if you have a problem personally, call me. That we will work with the network team to get your service fixed. And if you see something that's not working the way it's supposed to be working, call me. And I've got a bunch of cards I'll leave here as well. Anyone in the audience is free to take them. But we do want to make sure that our customers are taken care of, and we if there is a problem, and there will be a problem because it's a business, there will be a problem, but we will fix it and do the best we can to fix it.
Can you speak a little bit to the issue of the city council meetings that Don talked about, the quality of the video and the audio?
I have not personally watched the Access channel. We do not provide the equipment for your Access channel or the filming. We do provide the connection back to our network cable head end, if you will, so it will run on our channel. We will need to look into where there's an issue or why. I do not know what kind of equipment you use.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to say and point out to Don is we have in our budget this year, we put in, I believe, $9,000 to upgrade. And I don't,
I think I've talked to the individual that runs the equipment at MCC who operates, and he said the problem is because of the new high definition and their equipment there is so old. And so that's the biggest problem is the equipment that we're transmitting to at MCC is not compatible with the HD high definition.
well, another avenue that council has tried to work through is trying to provide the council meetings online. And maybe we're hopeful that we can get to more people that way and maybe provide a better quality product to the citizens that way. So,
And one of the things we are doing in this franchise agreement is allowing for a capital grant to help the city upgrade its equipment on your side. So it's section 13.5 is the access capital grant in the franchise agreement, so that you will have the opportunity, if you like, in addition to your YouTube and access to the internet. We have a up to a $5,000 capital grant to help pay for improved programming equipment that should help bring your equipment up to the same standard as the all-digital network that it's now riding on.
Thank you. Other questions, comments?
During the terms of the agreement, I didn't see anything about fiber optic in the future. Yeah,
Okay, so are you talking about like fiber to where? In terms of,
I'm asking on behalf of our library because our public library would like to upgrade
Is
In the
that
future.
internet, This is
to.
TV.
I understand.
Okay.
But I'm just, as my understanding is that no one here yet has fiber optic ability across cable or any of the technologies. And I was just gonna ask you if, in the future, if you would have fiber optic capability to
So-
provide to the city.
yep.
I can speak to that a little bit. I'd just like to quash what you just said a little bit. It's not true that we don't have the ability. It's a matter of what the customer wants to pay for. So if for the library wanted fiber into their building to provide whatever service they wanted, then we would need to get our fiber build team engaged and come up with a price for that and the monthly fee, but it can be done. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I add something to that?
Yes.
Maybe.
I have not worked with anybody at the library, but I don't know if they're aware. I would hope that they are aware. There's a federal program through the FCC called the E-rate program, and it provides basically subsidized funding, mostly for rural communities, schools, and libraries to help the cost. It used to just provide subsidies for the service, but it has been changed recently to now provide subsidies for capital construction costs in order to make broadband available. And there's a process where the library could put out an RFP to providers where Charter and other companies, if they wanted to, would be able to respond and say, how much will it cost to provide, this many megabits or this many gigabits of service to our library, and based upon that, they would be able to calculate what their E-rate subsidy would be, and from there, it might make what had previously been an unattainable cost attainable. So you may want to check with the folks at the library to see if they have looked at getting E-rate funding for their broadband needs.
Thank you.
And part of the all digital on the internet side was a minimum of 60 megabits of speed, but schools and businesses can purchase up to a gig, 10 gigs, 100 gigs. Again, it's what the business wants to pay for. And it's basically when people talk about the last mile to the business, that's what businesses look at. And we have that available.
Okay. Thank you. Again, any further comments? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing.
Ken, thanks for coming online tonight.
You're very welcome. If I could make one additional comment that the council, I hope, would find helpful in light of the testimony that you heard about the customer service issues. Remember that customer service standards can be imposed by the council outside of the cable franchising process, and they can, if the council finds it's necessary, they can be more stringent than the federal customer service standards that are imposed on cable companies. I'm not suggesting that you do that based upon one complaint at a public hearing, although I completely respect what the gentleman said, but I am just pointing out that citizens should be aware that, try to solve your problems with the cable company first. If that doesn't work, you can talk to the city, and if Monty were to get a call about, hey, I can't get anybody at Charter to fix this problem, he can pick up the phone and call Wendy. That's one of the reasons she's there, and say, this citizen has not had his problem solved through your customer service office. Can you please escalate it? And I trust that she would do that. And if that doesn't work, and the council were to find that we're getting a lot of complaints about this kind of issue or that kind of issue, they're not coming out to fix things in time, or the service goes out, or whatever, as long as it's related to the video product, council can impose regulations through customer service standards and impose penalties if they're not complied with. So again, I'm not suggesting that you do that, but I am suggesting that you let the public know that if they're not able to resolve issues timely with Charter, they ought to be able to call the city, and the city can help them escalate it. And I would say 99.9% of the time, that will solve the problem.
And that can be done separate from the franchise.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks very much for that information, Ken.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, now I will call for a counselor to introduce the ordinance and read by title only, and then a motion to approve the ordinance for publication on first reading. If anyone cares to do that.
Make a motion that, for the first reading of ordinance number 841-16, an ordinance granting a non-exclusive franchise by the city of Brush, Colorado to Bresnan Communication LLC and its lawful successors, transferees, and assigns, for the right to make reasonable and lawful use of the right-of-way within the city to construct, operate, maintain, reconstruct, repair, and upgrade a cable system for the purpose of providing cable services to the citizens with the city of Brush.
All right. Then a motion? Was that a motion too? Okay.
Second.
Second, motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I want to ask about one quick thing. Because you've gone over the agreement, and I just want to, right, Bo, am I correct?
That I've gone over the agreement?
Have you gone over the agreement?
Yeah.
Was there anything in the agreement that was remarkable that you might want to call our attention to?
No, I think Ken Fellman covered those points very well. And when he, jumped in to fill in, he covered some specific points that were helpful information.
Thank you, Bo.
Thank you.
Roll call vote.
Mayor Schomburger,
Yes.
Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Bain,
Yes.
Counselor Baker,
Yes.
Counselor Becker,
Yes.
Counselor Dykes,
Yes.
Counselor Quinlan.
Yes.
Moving on to number D, designation of official posting places.
Yes. Asking for consideration, resolution 2016-1 is designating City Hall lobby as our, public place for all of our notices as required by statute.
Is there a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? And roll call vote.
Okay. Mayor Schomberger,
Yes.
Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Bain,
Yes.
Counselor Baker,
Yes.
Counselor Becker,
Yes.
Counselor Dykes,
Yes.
Counselor Quinlan.
Yes.
Moving on to number C, ordinance number 842-16. Call for a counselor to introduce the ordinance and read the ordinance by title, and then a motion to approve the ordinance for publication on first reading.
I'd like to introduce and make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 842-16, an ordinance amending Article 3 of Chapter 8 of the Brush Municipal Code related to railroads.
Second.
Discussion. Bo, you wanna talk about railroads?
Sure. We have constructed a quiet zone barrier at the Clayton Street crossing of the Burlington Northern and Santa Fe Railroad. That permits the railroad, once all of the paperwork is through the Federal Railroad Administration and the Colorado Public Utilities Commission, to end the sounding of its horn when it approaches that intersection in either direction. We had to amend our ordinance because that had an across-the-board requirement that they had to sound the horn. And so we're rewriting our ordinance to say, except at a public grade crossing where a quiet zone has been established within the city of Brush, no horn is needed. Karen did some investigating of this and came up with some interesting information that these ordinances were imposed back in the days when there was no Federal Railroad Administration and there was no requirement for them to sound their horns. And these towns wanted the safety of the horns being sound or the bells being rung. And I think it goes back to the old days when the steam locomotives had the ding-dong bells on them.
I hear one now.
Yeah. Timing.
You hear the horn, yes,
Yes.
indeed. There is not in place the approval for that crossing yet, but that's in the works. This ordinance change is one little part of that, and it requires the railroad now to sound its horns as the federal train horn rule requires, or railroad operating rules require. And that will take us out of the mandatory sounding that we had in the past.
Thank you. Further discussion? Roll call vote.
Mayor Schomberger,
Yes.
Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Counselor Bain,
Yes.
Counselor Baker,
Yes.
Counselor Becker,
Yes.
Counselor Dykes,
Yes.
Counselor Quinlan.
Yes.
Moving on to number 12, staff reports. Finance Director Joanne.
I have one item this evening. Just wanted to make council aware that John McGinn, our water engineer, was here for the majority of the day today. And we did go over those water rates. As you may recall, I had some issues about those high-end ones and whether we were actually going to end up making some money or getting a true water increase. We went over the majority of that and kind of come up with some good solutions. And so I believe, if all goes well, that on the next council meeting on January the 25th, we'll be at work session going over a resolution for those new water rate increases.
Thank you. Moving down to marketing. Tyler.
I do have two different things I want to bring to your attention tonight. First off, toward the end of February, Rural Philanthropy Days, they are an organization, if you want to call it that meet every year to look at different issues within rural areas and hopefully address those issues. There are a lot of different foundations that come together and offer grants for
Philanthropic.
Philanthropic.
There you go.
I even thought about it in my mind so I wouldn't mess it up. When I did. Philanthropic grants available to these communities, and so they're going to be having a listening tour in February before they actually have the Rural Philanthropy Days, and they're going to meet with the entire Morgan County, and so they selected Brush as a site to meet at, and so we're going to be gathering different community leaders from around the county, and on behalf of the city, we're going to invite the mayor and Monty to listen and speak on that. And so if there's any issues that you see in the community, feel free to pass those on to them. So whether it be different things like homelessness or economic development or drug abuse, whatever it may be, we will gladly pass those on. And second, I met with
Excuse me,
Lance.
Tyler, is there a date for that?
I believe it's February 24th, off the top of my head. And we're going to be meeting at the Carroll Building, I think at 10 a.m. that morning. And And then the second thing, I met with Lance and Bill, the chef at the restaurant, and we put together somewhat of a marketing strategy that we're gonna go forward with in promoting the restaurant and the golf course over the next few months. We'll hopefully see a lot more traffic coming through there, which of course will be very beneficial for the golf course in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving